Well, g'day everybody, and thank you for joining me here today as we talk about some ways that we can help your e-learning initiative actually work. We know that there are challenges in delivering e-learning, whether that is library content or custom content, like the kind of materials that we specialize in. But today I want to highlight 5 ways to really try and improve the chances that your program will be a success. Now, why is this of interest to me? Well, we love e-learning. We've been doing it for over 13, almost 14 years now as an organization, and I've been experimenting with it for longer than that. And what I know is that if the e-learning works, then you're going to want to do more of it. So we are inherently invested in making sure that the e-learning programs that you are developing will be successful. And so we've got 5 strategies here that we'll run through over the next 15 or so minutes. So let's give you an overview of where we're heading today and what we're going to be talking about. First of all, and this is really what you need to get right before we even start, and that's getting the approver in the room. This is like, who are the stakeholders that you need to be engaged in this? What are the risks that we've seen and we continue to see? The challenges being around what you need and who you need to be involved in these projects from the very beginning. And I'll give you some, I guess, some stories around what challenges you can face here. Second, and this is particularly relevant in our region, it's getting the language right. Not just the language itself, like which language you're delivering in, but also the tone of that language, the nature of what you're delivering there as well. Now, this is one that I think L&D departments will often overlook, and that's launch it like it matters. So, how can we make sure that we give the opportunity that everyone knows about the program, and that they're more likely to participate in it and then go ahead and complete it? We're trying to try and get people excited about the program as well. You need to try and keep it current. We'll talk about some strategies around that. There's nothing worse than doing a 5-year-old compliance program that hasn't been reviewed in a long time. And then closely related to that is closing the feedback loop. So we've got some specific things that we try and support our clients with on how to make sure that we're getting the feedback that we need and we're making the learning as high quality and as useful to the learners as possible. So let's get the approver in the room early. So we typically work with your large corporate clients, and a very typical case here is that we might be dealing with the learning and development team, and they are the ones that facilitate the development of e-learning, and they might be reporting to like a part of the business. So one classic example might be the L&D's facilitating something, but the ultimate owner for the learning and the initiative is, let's say, the compliance department or regulatory of some description. So what is absolutely crucial here, and we emphasize this at the very beginning of all the programs, is that whoever's going to sign off on the program, they need to be involved from the very earliest stages. They might not attend every single design review or every single meeting, but they need to be there from the very outset. We've seen so many cases where we've not shown the person that's going to, sign off on the program until we're at like the gold stage, like the final stages of a project, and that is just a recipe for disaster. The real cost there is not just building the e-learning; it's potentially rebuilding it when you've got to go back to the drawing board because you've forgotten a key part of the message. It hasn't translated through like you want. Maybe they had a different vision for what the design process might be around it. Sometimes we even see that branding changes. And so if projects go on for a long time, we have more than once, probably a dozen times, been caught in a situation where the branding has changed since we started the project to when it was delivered. So these are things that you really, really need to be cautious of. And this is something you can just be prepared in early. If they want the project to succeed, they need to be involved from the very earliest stages of the project, from content to design aesthetics, to the instructional design approach and so on. So I think what's critical here is you name the approver at the kickoff. That we usually start the projects, of course, with a kickoff meeting. Let's name that person. Let's get them involved from the very beginning. And if you're looking at larger projects, then and we sometimes do projects with 20 modules or more, we often want to start with some kind of pilot. And what I mean by that is you might still be launching a larger project, but let's make sure that we're going in the right direction to start with. So that will mean maybe developing a good part or perhaps entirety of the first module you might be launching with. This is a great way for people to get really engaged with it and see like a preview of what's going to happen with the other modules as well. And then when the module comes to life in an interactive format, then that's where you can really get the further buy-in and excitement and engagement around the project. So this is something you can ask your vendor. Okay, let's start with we've got a larger project here, but let's start with a pilot. That will need to be paid for most certainly. And once that pilot is as has been bought in on, then you can go on and expand it throughout for the rest of the entire scope. I find that this is a very effective way if you are part of an L&D team and you need to secure a larger budget for this bigger project. Start with something small. Start with something that will get maximum visibility and there's maximum reuse. I recommend that because even if the whole project doesn't go off, then at least you're getting a maximum amount of value out of what you've got by having something that you can use or immediately, even if the whole program doesn't come together as you want it to, and you can hopefully get a lot of reuse out of it over years. So this is something that to consider if you're looking at bigger e-learning. Get the people involved early. Start with something a little bit smaller, and that's how you can look to manage things, with your stakeholders and with the people that are developing the e-learning for you. Okay, let's talk about language now. So just generally, we might see two types of audiences here. We do a lot for head office type of audience, so that what people might describe as the white collar audience. That is probably the majority of the amount of projects we do, if not the total learning audience. So having the language there that's appropriate for this white collar audience who's going to particularly in the UAE, will be fluent in English. You might only deliver that course in English, or maybe you choose to do it in English and Arabic as well. Arabic will be vital there for other regions. And then within the other segment that you might have there is the frontline staff as well. So you might find that you need to have two completely different programs for these audiences. One will be assuming some familiarity with the organization, with the acronyms that you might use. You still don't want to have very technical language in e-learning if you can avoid it. You still want to not add, this cognitive load even to that head office white collar type of audience. You still want to demonstrate your language in simpler terms whenever possible, and to make sure that it doesn't, even for people whose second language might be English, that it's not lost on that audience. But particularly for the frontline workers, what we'll often find is that you will do a couple of things. First, you'll try and remove as much text on the screen as you can and move more towards visuals. So your graphics, your imagery, you have shorter sentences or just a couple of words to indicate key references, and then you will also look to deliver it into multiple different languages. So depending upon the nature of your industry, you will often really need to develop it into a language that's common for that frontline staff, both in the language that they are familiar with. And so we see a lot of, South Asian languages. We'll of course develop a lot in Arabic. We've got some clients where we've delivered in 16 different languages across the globe, according to different markets. So if you're a multinational as well, then there may well be a very clear expectation that you're delivering it in the local language. That's just, it might be a political reality that you have to do that, or a regulatory one as well. So you need to consider language both from the actual language medium of delivery that you're doing, as well as the level of that language that you might be having there. And then to talk about translation and localization, these terms are often used a little bit interchangeably. We like to say that we're localizing our modules as much as we can. So we're not just putting it into the target language, but we're making it relevant to the region that it's involved in. Sometimes a common approach is that you might keep, let's say, 80% of a module the same. Like the key principles often won't vary according to different regions, but the context that you might be deleting or wanting to deliver in, and the examples that you give, and specific regulatory elements might vary according to the region. So a good rule of thumb here is to, when you're scoping out a whole project and you know it's going to go into, let's say, 4 or 5 different regions, is to allocate a scope where you've got about 20% that you know that you're going to need to modify to localize it for the regional context in both content and in the examples and so on that you're going to be delivering there. So but the other kind of key principle here is, even for the head office audience, unless you're, pitching it at the C-suite, you will typically want to keep, and even for the C-suite, you typically want to keep the language simple. Don't add cognitive load where you don't need to, and that will help learners be able to understand and go through the modules with more effectiveness as well. Okay, let's move on to the next key principle. Launch it like it matters. We want organizations to get excited about launching e-learning. We feel like e-learning is one of the key ways that companies can be more effective. It enables people the flexibility to do learning wherever they happen to be. They can do it in their own time. It typically will save money and time, particularly at larger scopes as well. So really want to get people pumped about this. So the way that we can support this is getting out the message more broadly. So one of the key initiatives we have is around a project success plan, a project success package that we have, and as a part of that, we develop these launch imagery and graphics and other media that you can help to launch it with. So one example, the way you might go about this is, let's say you're launching your new program on corporate AI usage, or introduction to artificial intelligence. So let's get people excited about it before it actually launches. So you can do this through your comms. You can do this through any internal newsletters, emails you might have, internal communications, designing a graphic saying launching Monday, our AI introduction to AI package available on your learning platform. You can print out banners, stick them in the elevators and around various components around that, even before you've launched the thing. And then you can have a countdown to the launch, and you can have multiple touch points with people. Like, this is a marketing event for you as well in L&D, to get people pumped about that this learning is going to happen. And trust me, it can be effective as well. People don't just need to do e-learning because they're told that they have to. People can get interested and excited about the learning as well. So that's something we support our clients with. Sometimes it's like little snippets or previews of the learning itself, like little teaser videos. Sometimes it's just a graphic with a launch date and the objectives. Sometimes for very high profile packages, we even get like the CEO to record a short message. And that goes as a part of the preview to the package, and then often can be incorporated like at the beginning slides to get people, knowing, hey, the CEO is kind of backing this. So this is quite an important topic that you need to consider as well. So launch it like it matters. Get launch assets, get it out there early, build excitement around the launch of your program, and that's a great way to make sure people come through the gate. And then, of course, after it launches, you can have reminders around it. You can say, hey, remember last week we launched this. Going back to the previous one where we got larger projects, we'll try and often, instead of launching all 10 modules at once, we'll launch one a week. And that gives us so much excuse to get back in touch. Like last week, we launched module 1. This week comes module 2. And next week, get people excited around the structure of your learning that you're going to be putting out there as well. So the other thing we need to do is, and this is so critical, there is a long list of e-learning modules that are out there that haven't been reviewed or looked at for sometimes multiple years. We find that the majority of our clients go on like an annual updates cycle. Sometimes this is fine when you're looking at refresh for things like your onboarding or compliance. Compliance programs are sometimes an annual cycle naturally, and so then in the months prior to that that cycle coming around, people go in and review this. Sometimes your content will need to be more dynamic as well. So your policies might change. You might have different systems coming on. If it's anything that's like product focused, then it needs to be much more dynamic. The AI introduction courses that we published 12 or 18 months ago are now some of the terminology there will literally seem a little bit dated. So it's really imperative that you keep your content current. And so there's a ways to do this. First, you can do this yourself. So we find for some of our clients that we'll do the heavy lifting of developing the modules and all the graphics and the interactions and so on. And then we hand over the source, and then we can provide licenses to tools like Storyline, Articulate, and Rise, and then the updates for basic text or imagery or quizzes even can be done by our clients themselves. We even provide training on how to do that. So, or you can always go back to your vendors as well. So we provide these customer success packages or project success packages where you have a certain amount of updates every month. So you've got a predictable way that you can do updates on a frequent basis, so you make sure that your content is always up to date. So look at doing that internally um, through having some skill sets around these tools, or utilize your vendor and build in some kind of package there that so you can predictably be able to do updates to your modules when you need them. Not just every year. You might do it after the first major launch, after a couple of months, and then you might find yourself on a nice cadence where every 2 to 3 months you're doing some kind of adjustments, or if it's a very dynamic content, you might be changing it even more frequently than that. And lastly, and it's related, it's closing the feedback loop. So look at your completion rates that you're getting for the learning, see what's working well. One of my favorite products that we have, and we launched this globally for one of our big multinationals recently, where we, in all the languages that we have for them, we have a feedback system. It's called Reflect AI for us. And we capture this qualitative feedback in the module itself. So rather than relying them to come back to your platform and click on a form and something, we do it actually right at the point of learning. And so utilizing AI naturally, we captured 2,500 bits of feedback in the 16, 17 different languages. And then we can summarize all that and get really, really impactful feedback on what the module is like, what things that need to be improved, different scenarios that people might want to incorporate in there. Sometimes great feedback on the nature of the learning itself and how we might be able to improve it around. So this goes to keeping both the content up to date, but it's also responding to the learners. You can also look at and now with the scale of leveraging AI here, if you see that you've got a trend where so many people are asking about a specific topic, then you can add that. Or if people are getting a certain quiz question incorrect on a higher frequency than what you might expect, then there might be issues with the content delivery of that side, or you might not be covering it very effectively. So closing this loop, using like a feedback tool, either within your learning platform, your LMS, or like one that we provide as part of this package, Reflect AI. So you're getting like a dialogue driven feedback is a great way of closing that loop down to make sure that you're in a position where you can improve that learning through every single interaction that learners will have with it, from the first learner to the 5,000th learner, and then actually act on it. The weakness I've seen with learning initiatives is one that And this is probably more so in the past where you might have captured a lot of feedback forms. Well, one, you've got to get them to complete the feedback. That's one challenge, I'll admit that. But second is compiling all that feedback into something that you can act upon. Nowadays, you can take all that data, you can put it into your favorite language model, and you can get, the top 5 things that you can change. We, of course, try and facilitate that as well. But still, this is something, if you've got the data there and you're not acting on it, then you're missing out on an opportunity to improve the learning outcomes here. So where does this leave you? The build is not the hard part. Okay, it is a little bit hard, to be fair. But 4 of the 5 recommendations that I have are things that you can do before you even gotten started here. I want you to factor these things in from the very beginning of your learning initiative. Get the right people in the room. Think about the languages that you're going to get people involved in. Think about the comms around the launch. Get people excited about it. Think about this as like almost a marketing initiative as well. Get your learners pumped to do the learning. Make sure you maintain your modules. Get your good feedback on it. Those few elements, the last few there, we've got plans that we help our clients with, but these are a lot of things that you can still do internally as well, to make sure that the tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of dirhams or dollars you've invested in your e-learning, or the countless hours that you spent building these programs, you get the biggest bang for your buck that way. Make sure you're giving them every chance that they will succeed. This is something that I'm clearly very passionate about. We want all of our clients to get the most out of the e-learning that we deliver. And for those who are our clients when it comes to Articulate licenses, then these are things that you can be factoring in when you're building your own modules as well. So I hope that one of these 5 will resonate with you, hopefully even more than that, and that you'll take away from this a couple of points that might help your organization just get a little bit more out of the e-learning initiatives that you've, blood, sweat, and tears and dollars and dirhams have been invested into, and you're getting the absolute most out of that. So thanks for attending today. I welcome any comments and feedbacks on this session. And if you want to chat about e-learning or anything I've talked about today, then feel free to get in touch. Thanks very much for your time.